I want you to imagine, just for a second, sitting in your next executive board meeting. The atmosphere is, tense, and you are the one who has to explain a sudden, entirely unexpected financial penalty.
Oh, that's a nightmare scenario.
Right. But we aren't talking about, like, a minor slap on the wrist here, or a routine compliance fee. How would your enterprise handle a penalty of 30 million euros? Or, depending on the sheer size of your organization, 6% of your global annual turnover, whichever of those two numbers happens to be higher.
I mean, it's just that kind of figure doesn't just disrupt a quarterly earnings call.
No, it destroys it.
Exactly. It completely alters the trajectory of a company. It is an existential threat to your balance sheet and, well, your market position.
And that is the very real wake-up call we are exploring today. The EU AI Act is here. So today we're tearing into a really comprehensive roadmap from AetherLink.
Yeah, the Dutch AI consulting firm.
Right, the ones actually building these systems on the ground in the innovation hub of Rotterdam. They're known for 3 distinct product lines. There's Aetherbot for autonomous agents, AetherMIND for AI strategy, and AetherDivV for core development.
And their research on this is really eye-opening.
It is. We are looking at their data to figure out why, 7 out of 10 enterprises are currently driving blind toward a massive regulatory cliff, and more importantly, how you can actually steer clear. Our mission today is to cut through all the heavy legalese and make these insights highly actionable for you, the business leaders, the CTOs, and developers evaluating enterprise AI right now.
Because the landscape is fundamentally shifting under our feet. I mean, this isn't some distant policy debate happening in a hypothetical future.
Right, it's happening now.
It is a concrete regulatory framework with incredibly sharp teeth. And that enforcement deadline, August 2, 2026, is approaching much faster than, well, most organizations are prepared for.
So, if everyone knows this August 2026 deadline is looming, I have to imagine enterprise leaders are just scrambling to fix this right now, right? I mean, you look at your calendar, you see a 30 million euro cliff approaching, and you slam on the brakes.
You would certainly think so. But the data tells a terrifyingly different story.
Really?
Yeah. To understand the urgency, we have to look at the gap between awareness and action. The source brings in the McKinsey 2024 State of AI in Europe report. According to their findings, 73% of European enterprises fully acknowledge that they need a massive AI governance overhaul.
Okay, so they see the cliff.
They see it. But the shocking part is that only 31% have actually started formal readiness assessments.
Wait, okay, let's unpack this. Roughly 7 out of 10 know the storm is coming, but only like 3 out of 10 are actually boarding up the windows?
Exactly.
Why is it for a reason? Are leaders just hoping the regulations get delayed?
It's less about hope and more about operational paralysis. When you dig into the root causes, enterprise leaders are looking at massive legacy tech debt and feeling completely overwhelmed by the ambiguity of what compliance actually means for their custom models.
Because it's not straightforward.
Not at all. And here is why waiting is so dangerous. Fixing this is not a quick software patch. The data indicates organizations need a solid 18 to 24 months to remediate these gaps.
Wow, up to 2 years.
Yeah. Physically redesign their processes and properly embed governance into their AI architecture. It takes time.
Which means if you wait until, say, mid-2025 to even start auditing your systems, you are already too late.
You are. You're forcing a chaotic acceleration.
Right.
You will be driving up your costs exponentially by rushing implementations, paying premium rates for emergency consulting, and honestly likely breaking your existing workflows in the process.
Right.
This isn't a future problem for 2026. It is a present-day operational bottleneck.
So if it takes nearly 2 years to get this right, what are we actually doing for those 24 months? Because the article makes it pretty clear that this isn't just about handing a compliance checklist to your legal team.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's about fundamentally upgrading your structural maturity, right?
That is the core distinction. You cannot just draft a policy document that says, our AI is safe. You have to technically prove how your organization integrates oversight across your people, your processes, and your technology infrastructure.
How do you even measure that?
Well, the source references the Deloitte 2024 AI Governance Survey. They lay out 5 distinct maturity levels for organizations: ad hoc, reactive, managed, optimized, and autonomous.
And where is everyone sitting right now?
Most European enterprises are currently stuck at the reactive level, which is around 40%, or the managed level at 35%.
Wait, I need to stop you there. I hear terms like explainability and governance frameworks, and as a business leader, all I hear is my development cycle grinding to a total halt.
I get that a lot.
Right. I mean, if an AI model works, if it saves us money and increases efficiency, why are we forcing it to basically sit for a legal deposition? Isn't this just bureaucratic red tape killing innovation?
See, what's fascinating here is that explainable AI, or XAI as it's called in the industry, is absolutely not red tape.
It's not.
No, it is the operational backbone of your entire enterprise system. Without it, you don't have a reliable business tool. You have a black box that represents a massive liability.
Let's translate that for a second. When you say black box, you mean a system where data goes in, a decision comes out, but nobody, not even the developers, knows exactly how the math arrived at that conclusion.
Correct. And XAI is the mechanism that fixes that. It isn't just a basic log file. Think of XAI as like a parallel observation system that tracks the neural network's decision tree in real time.
Okay, so it's watching the AI, I think.
Precisely. If an autonomous agent makes a critical mistake, say it unexpectedly denies a major vendor payment or misroutes a massive cargo shipment in a logistics hub, the business must be able to pull the XAI layer to see exactly which data weight triggered that decision.
So instead of just guessing, the XAI tells you the agent denied the shipment because fuel prices spiked 2% at exactly 3:00 p.m., triggering a predefined risk threshold.
Yes.
It translates the complex math into a plain English business rationale.
That is the exact mechanism. Under the EU AI Act, you have to prove to a regulator why a model made a specific choice. And you have to prove there were human-in-the-loop checkpoints available to override it.
So if you can't explain it, you can't use it.
If you cannot explain the mechanics of the decision, you legally cannot run the model, period.
Man, and here's where it gets really interesting, because this need for explainability becomes exponentially more critical when we look at where enterprise AI is actually heading next.
The agentic frontier.
Exactly. We are moving far beyond the era of basic customer service chatbots. We're entering what the industry calls the agentic frontier.
And that represents a massive leap in capability, alongside, quite frankly, a massive leap in regulatory risk. We have data from Forrester Research showing that a staggering 58% of enterprise technology leaders are either piloting or deploying autonomous agents right now.
We need to distinguish this for a second because the term agent gets thrown around like constantly. A basic chatbot is rule-based, right?
Right. It is totally reactive. You ask it for a company's return policy, and it retrieves a script.
Exactly. But an autonomous agent operates on a completely different paradigm.
Agents are fundamentally goal-oriented. You don't give them a script. You give them an objective, like optimize our supply chain logistics for the next quarter.
And they just figure it out.
Yeah, they learn from live data streams, they make autonomous decisions on how to achieve that goal, and they actively execute tasks across your live enterprise systems with minimal human intervention.
Which instantly pushes them into the EU AI Act's high-risk category.
Oh, absolutely. It triggers all the heaviest requirements.
Yeah.
You are suddenly mandated to provide strict conformity evidence, conduct mandatory demographic bias testing, and maintain continuous real-time monitoring.
Let's clarify conformity evidence and bias testing mechanically. It means you can't just promise a regulator that your, say, HR screening agent is unbiased.
No promises allowed.
You need the actual data logs proving you ran synthetic testing against demographic variables before that agent ever touched a real applicant's resume.
Exactly.
And if you don't have that governance maturity, deploying an agent doesn't give you a shiny new efficiency. It just creates a giant target on your back.
It also creates an operational nightmare if your infrastructure isn't ready. The article highlights a Gartner 2024 AI Ops survey revealing that 67% of enterprise AI agent deployments are facing severe implementation delays.
Over 2/3.
Yep, and it's largely due to legacy process fragmentation.
You know, when I read about legacy process fragmentation, the best way I could visualize it is this. It's like hiring a genius, hyper-efficient, polyglot supply chain manager, but locking them in a windowless room where the only way they can get information is through a fax machine that occasionally runs out of paper.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. The genius manager represents your state-of-the-art large language model or autonomous agent. The fax machine represents your undocumented, disconnected legacy APIs.
Think about a complex environment like Rotterdam's port operations. You might have vessel tracking systems built in 2010 over here, cargo management systems over there, billing in another silo entirely, and compliance operating on like manual spreadsheets.
A total mess.
Right. The agent might be brilliant, but if your billing and logistics APIs don't speak the exact same language, the agent is completely blind. It literally cannot execute its goals.
And this is where the theoretical necessity of governance meets the practical reality of daily operations. Organizations that rush to deploy autonomous agents into those fragmented silos face incredibly high failure rates.
The agents just break down.
The agent hallucinations skyrocket because they're pulling conflicting data, and internal trust just erodes. You have to do the unglamorous work of process mapping, data standardization, and API integration first.
So if throwing an autonomous agent into a messy legacy system is a recipe for disaster, how do you fix it without shutting down your entire operation? I mean, is anyone actually doing this right?
We can actually move from theory to a highly tangible success story right in the heart of Rotterdam to answer that.
Oh, perfect.
In early 2024, a major port operator found themselves facing a full-blown governance crisis. They had independently deployed 3 separate, powerful AI systems across different departments.
What were they using?
They had a predictive maintenance chatbot for their cranes, a demand forecasting model for cargo, and an autonomous vessel scheduling agent.
So 3 incredibly complex systems, but absolutely zero coordinated oversight.
None. The forecasting model might predict a massive surge in cargo, but the scheduling agent wouldn't know to open up more docking bays because they didn't share a centralized data lake.
Man, so they were sitting firmly at that level 1 ad hoc maturity stage we discussed earlier.
Firmly at level 1. They had no shared documentation, their risk assessments were entirely sporadic, and their audit trails were completely isolated from one another. When it came to EU AI Act Readiness for August 2026, they were functionally at 0.
That is a terrifying place to be when you have an autonomous scheduling agent making live decisions that impact international shipping routes. So how did AetherMIND actually step in and untangle that?
Well, they conducted a comprehensive readiness scan to map the technical gaps, and then led a 12-month, highly methodical transformation. The very first thing they did was establish an AI governance board.
Like a committee.
Yes, but this wasn't just a symbolic committee. It became the central translation layer for the organization's AI strategy, standardizing how risk was assessed across all departments.
They essentially built the nervous system to connect those isolated brains.
Once the board was in place, they tackled the system remediation. They went directly into that autonomous vessel scheduling agent and explicitly engineered those XAI layers we broke down earlier.
To make it explainable.
Right. They implemented live bias monitoring to ensure the scheduling wasn't favoring certain shipping conglomerates over others based on flawed historical data, and they created centralized audit dashboards. They also trained over 50 staff members on compliance and incident response.
Ensuring the human element was fully integrated into the technical loop.
Exactly.
And the analytical payoff here is what really struck me. By Q3 of 2024, AetherMIND had elevated this port operator from level 1 ad hoc up to level 3 managed maturity. But the victory wasn't just satisfying a government auditor.
No, it was operational.
Right, because the AI was now operating transparently, cohesively, and pulling from standardized data pools. It actually resulted in an 8% reduction in overall port turnaround time.
And an 8% reduction at a facility the size of a major international port represents an astronomical operational cost saving. It proves the central thesis of the article. Governance isn't just a shield to avoid fines.
It's an enabler.
Yes. It is a catalyst to unlock the actual operational value of your AI. Their regulatory confidence went up, but more importantly, their organizational confidence to scale AI safely into new areas skyrocketed.
Seeing the tangible ROI of that governance leads directly to the next logical question for you, the listener. How do you scale this across a messy, complex enterprise? The article introduces a very specific concept to solve this, a fractional AI lead architect.
A very smart approach.
Now, I have to ask, why fractional? If this is an existential 30 million euro problem, why not just hand this responsibility to your existing CTO?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to realize the immense pressure already on a chief technology officer.
Oh, their plate is full.
Right. A CTO is managing the entire technology stack of the enterprise cybersecurity, cloud migration, hardware procurement, software development. AI governance under the strict parameters of the EU AI Act is a highly specialized, hyper-focused discipline.
It's almost its own entire field.
Exactly. When AI strategy is fragmented across different business units, like marketing buying one SaaS tool and logistics building a custom model, it creates massive regulatory blind spots that a generalist CTO simply doesn't have the bandwidth to police.
Especially when you factor in where all these tools actually live. The text points out that most of these enterprises are operating in incredibly messy hybrid cloud environments.
Oh, the hybrid cloud makes it so much harder.
You might have customer data sitting on AWS, your proprietary algorithms running on Azure, and highly sensitive financial records sitting on legacy on-premise servers down in the basement.
And that infrastructure fragmentation is the enemy of compliance. You need unified monitoring and consistent data governance policies across all those distinct boundaries. If your governance breaks down the moment data moves from Azure to an on-prem server—
Your compliance is broken.
Exactly. A fractional AI lead architect provides that specialized senior-level expertise. They design the cross-environment XAI mechanisms and the standardized APIs.
And because they are fractional,
Because they're fractional, they provide this deep alignment without adding bloated permanent overhead to your executive payroll. It is precision expertise deployed exactly when you need it.
and the source outlines a very clear, actionable four-phase roadmap that this architect would typically lead an enterprise through. Phase 1 is assessment and discovery, which the timeline dictates needs to happen like right now, stretching into Q4 of 2024.
Right. During Phase 1, you aren't fixing anything yet. You are running deep readiness scans, classifying the risk tiers of all your current AI systems according to the Act's definitions, and rigorously documenting your baseline gaps.
Then we move to Phase 2, the foundation and governance build, happening in early 2025. This is when you establish that internal governance board, adopt your standardized policies, and begin collecting the actual technical conformity evidence.
This phase acts as the ultimate reality check. It tells you if that August 2026 deadline is actually achievable with your current resources, or if you need to trigger serious contingency planning.
Which naturally leads into Phase 3, system remediation and optimization, running from mid-2025 into early 2026. This is the heavy lifting.
Yeah, this is where you are physically fixing the high-risk systems, re-engineering your models to include those XAI explainability mechanisms, and completing your required third-party audits.
Finally, Phase 4 is continuous assurance, beginning in mid-2026 and intended to run indefinitely.
The new normal.
Right. You transition out of panic mode and into steady-state operations, utilizing live monitoring and quarterly audits so you are inherently ready for an inspection on any given Tuesday.
It is a phenomenal pragmatic roadmap that takes a highly complex regulatory burden and turns it into a manageable sequence of operational upgrades.
So, what does this all mean? Wrapping up this deep dive, let's distill our most crucial insights for your immediate strategy. For me, my absolute #1 takeaway from all this research is a warning.
Let's hear it.
Do not rush blindly into the agentic frontier without optimizing your foundational workflows first. Putting autonomous learning AI agents into fragmented, undocumented legacy silos is putting a genius in a room with a broken fax machine.
That analogy is perfect.
It is a recipe for massive regulatory liability, high hallucination rates, and operational chaos. You have to do the unglamorous process optimization before you let the agent loose.
That is a critical priority. My #1 takeaway is understanding the vital distinction between mere compliance readiness and true governance maturity.
Okay, break that down.
Compliance readiness just means you managed to scrape together a checklist of documents to survive the August 2026 deadline. But governance maturity means you have actually built the live monitoring, the technical XAI infrastructure, and the continuous audit frameworks to sustain that compliance over time as your AI inevitably scales.
It becomes part of the DNA.
Exactly. Mature governance transforms from a cost center into a competitive differentiator. It allows you to innovate much faster than your rivals who are still manually checking boxes.
It is the fundamental difference between cramming the night before a test and actually mastering the underlying material.
And, this raises an important question that I want to leave you with today. The entire premise of the EU AI Act is heavily focused on forcing organizations to build explainable AI so that external regulators can trust our systems.
Right, the transparency mandate.
But once we achieve that, once your autonomous agents are transparent enough to clearly explain their logic, their mathematical weighting, and their decision-making process to a government auditor, how will that exact same transparency revolutionize the inside of your company?
Oh, wow.
How will it fundamentally change the way your human employees trust, debate with, and actually learn from their new AI colleagues?
That is a fascinating shift in perspective. It turns a looming regulatory burden into a massive cultural and intellectual asset for your entire workforce. We covered a tremendous amount of ground today, from the realities of existential fines to paving the architectural roads for autonomous agents. For more AI insights, visit aetherlink.ai.